We have a lot of names for that one all-encompassing entity that defines evil across different cultures. Satan, Iblis, Shaitan, Lucifer, Ahriman. But in the English-speaking world, this malevolent entity is usually known to just be the devil, the Prince of Darkness, the master of all things unholy, and an affront to anything that is pure and moral. Whatever your personal beliefs are, it is hard to deny the devil's influence in modern culture. In some Abrahamic faiths, the devil is meant to be a manifestation of an entity that stands against everything God stands for, an opposite force, so to speak, in order to tip the scales and pull God's subjects towards evil. One way the devil does this is by sending his minions to possess certain people to do his evil biddings, almost as if to make God eat some humble pie. On October 1974, the quiet town of Osset in West Yorkshire, England, became the unlikely setting for getting a taste of this pie, when on a sunny October morning, a man was found slumped on a public street in front of a pub, covered in blood, screaming, "It is the blood of Satan! It is the blood of Satan!" Michael Taylor, a seemingly normal family man, would commit heinous acts that would leave his community and the country in shock, and anyone involved, even the authorities, traumatized. Hello, and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy all things dark and mysterious. Now, let's lift the thin veil. Michael Taylor was an ordinary man from Osset, a small town in West Yorkshire, England. He lived a typical life with his wife, Christine Taylor, their 5 sons, and a poodle. The marriage was a happy marriage, where they were still courting each other according to Christine's father. Michael often used to joke that Christine used to love the poodle more than him. The Taylor family was well integrated into their community, embodying the middle-class lifestyle that was common in the area. His life, by all accounts, mirrored the quiet, unassuming nature of Osset itself. Nothing was really extraordinary about them until, in early 1974, Michael's life took a turn due to a back injury, which left him in constant pain and unable to work his job as a butcher. Michael was known to be a hard-working man who loved his job, who took pride in providing for his family, so this was a significant blow to him. The timing couldn't have been worse, as Britain was going through a recession, making job opportunities scarce and financial stability difficult to maintain for many families, including the Taylors. The combination of physical pain and financial strain began to take a heavy toll on Michael's mental health, plunging him into a deep depression. What makes what follows strange is that the Taylors were never known to be religious. As a couple, they never really went to church, that is, until the summer of 1974. A mere 3 months before the gruesome events of October 6th took place. Likely due to the increased tension the Taylor household was facing, they were looking for some type of a coping mechanism. People find it in different ways, and the Taylors looked towards religion. The story is that Michael and Christine were introduced to a local Christian fellowship group by a neighbor called Barbara Wardman. The thing is that this wasn't just a regular group. It was part of the charismatic Christian movement, modeled after the ministries of Aimee McPherson, the founder of Foursquare Church, which is a denomination that believes that the sick can be healed by divine prayer, and they tend to speak in tongues. They also sing and dance during service. Aimee McPherson was an eccentric figure. Arguably, she was probably the pioneer for evangelicals using broadcast mass media, such as TV and radio, for religious services. I won't dive too much into her background, but in order to give you context for the fellowship the Taylor family got involved with, I'll need to tell you about one of McPherson's sermons. One of her sermons, dubbed Arrested for Speeding, involved her retelling the story of her experience at a traffic stop, but with her dressed in a traffic cop's uniform, sitting on a police motorcycle with sirens blaring. She then drove the motorcycle across the access ramp to the pulpit, slammed the brakes and screamed, "Stop, you're speeding to hell." So the point of me telling you that is that the church fellowship the Taylors were involved with had a more loud and proud form of worship, including speaking in tongues and faith healing. This group's meetings were probably a stark contrast to the traditional reserved services in Britain, which the Taylors might have been accustomed to. This new experience, and the leader I'll mention in a second, started to give Michael the hope that he had been searching for during his depression. The leader of this group, Marie Robinson, was a 22-year-old woman, a charismatic preacher who captivated Michael. His fascination with Marie grew deep, so much so that Christine at one point described it as carnal in nature to the wider fellowship group once during a Bible study session. It is reported that Marie seemed to encourage the infatuation. She held special one-on-one religious sessions with Michael that often revolved around demonic forces, and they would speak in tongues. She would also encourage Michael to host meetings at his house and volunteer in most of the group's activities. Christine was growing sick and tired of how close Marie and her husband were getting, and several times tried to call out this relationship by saying Michael was more interested in Marie than Jesus. This started to cause tensions at home, with Michael starting to distance himself from Christine and the children. Until this point, the accusations levied by Christine were that Michael and Marie were simply interested in each other. There was never any accusation of any adultery. But during one meeting, Christine decided to explicitly state in front of the group that she believed Michael and Marie were having a relationship, that he was cheating on her. The group, shocked, suggested Michael and Marie go to another room to sort it all out, which I find strange. Why did Michael not speak to his wife instead? Why with Marie, the person he was being accused of cheating with? Anyway, when they returned shortly after, Michael announced that whatever he and Marie had between them was now over. Reportedly, Michael had tried to kiss her, but Marie rejected his advances. But this is not something that was admitted at the time. Michael screamed that he had achieved victory for the Lord and a miracle has happened. We have both overcome our passion. For the rest of the meeting, Marie and Michael would only speak to each other in tongues. The strange thing was what the group said about Michael. According to the members of the meeting, they noted that something about Michael was off. He had changed, and they described him as beastly. But that's not where the strangeness stops that night. Michael then suddenly lunged at Marie, attacking her while screaming in tongues. He pinned her down and looked over her. It is claimed that Marie said, "It was like pictures of lions ready to kill their prey. I really tasted fear in my mouth. I thought this was it. I was on the verge of death, and I seemed to come to my senses," noting that she remembered Jesus and that's why she was not killed. It took the rest of the group to pry Michael off Marie. Marie was stunned and cowered in the corner of the room. Michael, confused, said something evil had taken hold of him and couldn't understand why he'd do such a thing. After the incident, Michael's behavior grew increasingly bizarre. He started destroying religious symbols in the house. He even got in an altercation with a neighbor where he started shouting at her to drink the milk of human kindness. Then he spat on her and told her that it was milk. Upon the neighbor's disgust, she tried to get away. He followed her shouting, "The wrath of God is upon you! The wrath of God is upon you!" So you can see that Michael was definitely in the territory of being an extremely troubled individual already at this point. He would later be visited by Reverend Peter Vincent, vicar of St. Thomas's Church, where Michael and his wife would accuse Marie of being a Satanist who had caused Michael to be possessed by a demon. The Reverend took his leave and said he would contact the Taylors in a few days. During this time, it's said that Michael did not get a wink of sleep. Some sources say it could be almost 3 nights. The Reverend would eventually invite Michael to discuss his problems further to see if an exorcism is in order. And although the Taylors initially refused, the same neighbor that had introduced them to the Christian fellowship we talked about earlier, Barbara, would convince Michael to visit Reverend Peter Vincent. The Taylors decided to drop their children off to Christine's parents' house and head to see Reverend Peter Vincent. The exorcism group consisted of Reverend Peter Vincent, Reverend Raymond Smith and his wife Peggy, and a preacher called Donald James. Michael suddenly felt extremely reluctant and probably intimidated due to the environment. The church was built in the 19th century and has a very gothic feel to it. Coupled with the lack of sleep, Michael was already on the brink of insanity. So, in hindsight, this was a recipe for disaster. As they were preparing for the exorcism, Michael apparently lost his temper and hit a few of the people there, and even kicked one of the reverend's cats. He had to be bound so they could start the exorcism. Michael was speaking unknown languages, showing aversion to religious symbols, and displaying unreasonable amounts of strength, all classic signs of a possessed soul according to some religions. This is where a cross was tied to his neck and set on fire, and another cross was stuffed into his mouth. Water was thrown at him. All the meanwhile, they were screaming prayers at him to try to get the demons out. Eventually, as tiredness kicked in from a session of forced exorcism, the group decided they needed a break. They told the tailors to return the following day, claiming they managed to get 40 demons out, but still needed to banish the 3 remaining demons still possessing Michael. The 3 demons were anger, insanity, and murder. Just think about that for a second. Telling someone who is already deeply troubled that they have potentially uncontrollable anger, insanity, and murder within them. Upon seeing the condition of Michael, some of the staff at the church called the police, but they did not really do anything about it other than tell the tailors they should go see a doctor. The tailors refused and decided to head home in the early hours of the morning on the 6th of October. This is when things took their darkest turn yet. When the police were called, what was being reported on a sunny Sunday morning by numerous people was extremely odd for the quiet little neighborhood of Havercroft. A man, naked except for the socks on his feet, slumped on a sidewalk outside a pub, curled up in a fetal position but covered in blood, screaming, "It is the blood of Satan! It is the blood of Satan!" It wasn't a drunk this time. It was Michael Taylor. Upon exploring the Taylor family's house, it's reported that some officers came out sick and extremely traumatized. The walls and floor of the house were completely covered with flesh and blood. Christine and the dog's bodies were found in the living room. Christine and the dog's eyes were gouged out and their tongues ripped out. The dog found strangled, its hair removed from the skull and its legs pulled out from its sockets. Both lifeless bodies mutilated beyond recognition. Their injuries so severe that they spoke to a level of violence that seemed superhuman. At his trial, Michael's defense claimed that he did not have the intention to kill his wife. He thought he was killing the devil, and that the group of exorcists were feeding his delusions, tipping Michael over the edge, causing him to lose his mind. Allegedly, he had no memory of his actions. He just had a memory of wanting to eliminate an evil presence. Medical professionals also blamed the incident on the exorcism, saying that it pushed a neurotic man over the edge, leading him into a complete rage which overtook his mind. Michael Taylor, after all of this, was acquitted on the grounds of insanity and did not see the inside of a prison cell. He was reportedly sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 2 years, then spent 2 years in a secure ward in Bradford, Yorkshire, after which he was released back into society. When asked for a motive, Michael simply responded, "Released. I am released. It is done. The evil in her has been destroyed." There is not much information of his whereabouts after his time spent in said mental health facilities. If he is still alive, he would be in his early 80s currently. So what happened here? Was Michael just simply a murderer? Was Michael possessed? Or was it simply the case of the power of suggestion taking hold of a man on the brink of insanity? As the dust settled, one thing remained clear. There were many people utterly confused about how quickly Michael got to the mental state he is in. What could cause a family man who was not even known to hit his children a few months before this, which was more common then, to commit these violent acts? If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you subscribe, like, and don't forget to leave your thoughts down below. Until next time.